This is your Daily 5 for Thursday, February 19th, 2026. I've mentioned, I think, a couple of times in the Friday shows that I have been reading the original and apparently now uncensored, and I really haven't looked into what the word censorship means in this context. It's sort of vague, but the apparently uncensored version of the original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So I've read that book. I actually just finished it a day or two ago, and I will be talking about it in detail in the Friday show because I could not possibly cover everything about the book in a 5. But I did want to say, in case there are people listening who have thought about reading it or maybe haven't or have avoided it, I'm going to say a couple things about it. For a book that was written in 1818, I believe, was the date that it was released, published, whatever term they would have used. I assume published was, they still called it publishing, but whatever. It was written in 1818. And for a book of that vintage, I found it to be very, very readable. Once I got past I got used to, better way to say it, a couple of things about the way that the book is written. Now, one of them really is specific to the time period and the way that language is employed between specifically men and then women, meaning a man to a man and a man to a woman. Lando has, and we'll go over this tomorrow, there was apparently some different ways that people express themselves that are sort of the inverse of what I'm used to from the modern world. It doesn't have any bearing on the story. It doesn't matter. It's just something that I picked up. One thing that some modern readers might have to get used to and does at first, the first 2 or 3 times you run into it, it is a little jarring, is that often in the middle of sentences, a exclamation, meaning a person saying something with force, like dramatically, like you might expect in a play or a monologue, is in the middle of a sentence. So somebody, if the sentence is, I got into my car to drive to the store, you would read it, that it would be written as, I got into my car, oh, I did, to drive to the store, with an exclamation point at the middle of, oh, I did, and then the sentence just keeps going on. Those are really the only things about the book that will give away when it was written. Otherwise, the book itself, it could have been written yesterday. It flows very well. It's paced very well. It's interesting, certainly, to contrast what most modern interpretations of the story are. And one thing I have not seen in any modern version, including the 1931 version, is the ending that the book has, which I actually like quite a bit. I don't mind the endings that we've gotten over the years, but I really like the way this book ends, and it feels like a cinematic ending where I'm genuinely surprised. Unless there is, now I will say I have not seen every adaptation, including the one that's supposedly the most faithful, so maybe it does happen in that one. But certainly in the big budget or most well-known, the Del Toro version, the Kenneth Branagh version, the original Universal version, I have not seen, the Universal version changes a lot of things. But I have not seen the ending that the book has done yet in any other adaptation. So if it has been, that's my oversight in having not seen it. But I hope it has, because I really like it. It's a really interesting way to end the book, and feels very, that is something that does feel like a different way of ending a book, but not in a way that will, if you were to hand this story to somebody and say, when do you think it was written? They would probably know it wasn't written this year because of some of the sentence structure and a couple things. But I don't think they would realize how many years ago the book was written, which I think is something that is a huge plus. It reads very well, unlike some other older books that I've read. And the story holds up and has a really interesting sense of kind of moral back and forth, particularly when it comes to Frankenstein. Unsurprisingly, you are, or at least I would think, that most people will be on the side of the monster throughout most of the story, because the monster truly is a victim. But Victor Frankenstein himself has a very, very interesting kind of whipsaw back and forth where he really doesn't seem to know, or doesn't seem to want to grapple with what his moral responsibilities are. And I think that's part of what gives the book its power, as well as the fact that the monster is a fascinating creature. And again, has been adapted so many times that this is the source of all of it. So I would highly recommend, if you've never read the original Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, it reads very, very well in the modern day, and it's worth reading. Later.